Today we're going to go over some of what we've done to prepare for Tuesday's New Year's Eve celebration. You're going to hear from Chief Terry Monahan, Chief of Department, and then from Assistant Chief Martine Matarazzo, our new head of Counterterrorism. Then we'll take a few questions. First, I want to tell you that the discussions about this year's event, as we've said before, literally began on January 1st of last year, after the last piece of confetti fell. Involved in these conversations, as always, are all of our partners, including the Secret Service, State Police, FBI, and many others. The collaboration is vital to everything that we do throughout the year, because nothing that we do accomplish in our profession is ever done alone. This is how we carry out our shared mission of delivering the safest and most enjoyable event possible, up to and including the drop of the ball in Times Square. And of course, there are many other events related to New Year's Eve happening outside of Times Square throughout the city. I could tell you that we currently have no specific credible threats directed toward any of our events. Still, I'm going to ask that members of the public, as always, remain vigilant. There are millions of eyes and ears out there that can aid us in keeping New York City safe. So if anyone sees something that doesn't feel right, makes you uncomfortable, tell a police officer is the message. There will be thousands of them out there, as you know, on Tuesday evening. Or call 911 or contact toll-free our counterterrorism hotline at 888-NYC-SAFE. This is what we get paid to do every day. We plan for and secure large-scale events all over the 5 boroughs. And whether it's events the size and scope of New Year's Eve or just daily life in New York City, it always takes everyone doing their part. And the bottom line is this: we need people to be safe, and we need people to feel safe as well. This is going to be one of the most well-policed, well-protected celebrations in the entire world, and we'll have another safe and enjoyable New Year's Eve as we do every year. Terry?
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy holidays. Hopefully a very happy new year and happy new decade. All right, New Year's Eve in Times Square is a celebration that welcomes hundreds of thousands of people to the crossroads of the world, and it's an enormous undertaking to both plan and protect. But revelers can rest assured that nobody secures large-scale events better than the NYPD. Our men and women in blue will be out in full force, protecting the ball drop in Times Square and the numerous other celebrations throughout the city, all while still answering calls for service across the 5 boroughs. Before I begin, I'd like to personally thank every cop who has helped make the holidays in our city safe for all who live, work, and visit here. They've spent time away from their families to help protect millions of people, and it certainly doesn't go unnoticed. Planning for this year's event, like Commissioner said, literally began at the end of last year's celebration, and we couldn't do it without the collaboration we have with all of our federal partners. There are going to be thousands of cops assigned to Times Square and the surrounding streets. Most of them will be in uniform in highly visible posts, but as always, we will have several teams out there that will not be visible. You will see blocker cars or sand trucks at every intersection that will close off crosstown traffic. And we'd like to thank the Sanitation Department for being our partners with us again this year. Street closures will begin as early as 4 a.m. in Times Square, and you can expect to see some full street closures at 11 a.m. This will be 38th Street to 56th Street from 6th to 8th Avenue. There will also be a truck restrictions on both 6th and 8th Avenues. Depending on the crowds, we may have the closures go as far as 59th Street. As we have learned from the past years, we expect revelers to start filling in the pens before 11 a.m., 65 pens that we're expecting to have. Each of those pens will be checked by an officer with a handheld magnetometer. Chief Matarazzo will go into greater detail what you can expect as you enter into the Times Square area. Our access points are located at 38th, 49th, 52nd, 58th, and 59th Streets at both 6th and 8th Avenue, as well as 54th Street on 6th Avenue and 55th Street on 8th Avenue. Backpacks, duffel bags, packages, and alcohol will not be permitted into the area. While there are no current, specific, credible threats to New Year's Eve, we will have a strong counterterrorism overlay, which includes thousands of highly visible cops on the streets and in the subways, will be our heavy weapons teams from both the Emergency Service Unit, Critical Response Commands, and the Strategic Response Group. NYPD canines trained to detect the presence of explosive material will also be out there. We're going to have observation posts assigned to buildings throughout the Times Square area. We will also have cops assigned to every hotel within the Times Square area. We're going to have the full resources of our bomb squad on hand all night. And of course, hundreds of traffic enforcement agents at the intersections. And while we have all these resources on the ground, our aviation unit will be overhead, surveying rooftops and ensuring the crowds are safe. Also in the air, weather permitting this year, is going to be our drones. And working with our federal partners, we're going to utilize drone mitigation protection as well. With all that said, it's clear that Midtown Manhattan will be very, very congested on Tuesday. We strongly encourage anyone coming in the city to use public transportation. And if you do drive, please know you will see safety and DWI checkpoints helping to protect everyone on the roadways. Tuesday's weather looks like it's going to be really nice. Real warm night, unlike the last couple of years. So we are expecting millions of people out within the Times Square area. And those are a million or so eyes out there, and they're a force multiplier. And we need your help too. Please report anything you think is suspicious. Tell a cop, one of the thousands you're going to see out there. Call, as the Commissioner said, 888-NYC-SAFE, or dial 911. Know that New York NYPD cops are keeping New Year's Eve in New York City safe, and we're going to have one of the best, most protected events in the world. Come out, enjoy, and have a very safe New Year. Thank you. Martine?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to speak briefly about some of the security measures we have put into place to ensure that the thousands of spectators who gather that day in Times Square for the New Year's Eve festivities are safe while they enjoy their celebration. At this time, there is no credible or specific threat against the New Year's Eve celebration in Times Square. However, the New York City Police Department is well prepared to protect all New Yorkers Tuesday evening. We train our officers throughout the year to prepare them for the challenges of securing such a large event as this. To prepare for this year's event, we have evaluated our security screening and deployments from last year. We have assessed new threats and tactics based on recent incidents around the world. There will be many protective measures you will see, and there will be some that you will not see. We will work closely with many of our federal, state, and local partners to make sure that we keep everyone attending this year's event safe. Times Square will be one of the safest, well-policed, well-protected events in the world. We will be deploying several hundreds members of the Counterterrorism Bureau who are assigned specifically to the New Year's Eve event. In addition, we will be deploying several hundred other counterterrorism trained officers from precincts across New York City to assist in the screening of spectators as they are allowed to enter into the frozen areas. We will be deploying many counterterrorism assets as seen in years past, including explosive canine detection teams, radiation detection teams, bomb squad response teams, drone detection and interdiction teams, alongside with our partners, the FBI, heavy weapons teams, plainclothes officers, counterterrorism boats will cover both the east and the west Hudson Rivers, approximately 175 blocker vehicles, which will include 67 from sanitation, that will be used to secure the avenues and protect vehicles from entering the frozen zones. There will be also over 200 NYPD concrete blocks, and we will have access to over 1,200 cameras, including NYPD fixed cameras and temporary installed special event cameras for events as this, and access to our private stakeholders' cameras. What to expect when entering the access point blocks. It will be multi-layer screening process. So you will encounter canine vapor dogs, you will encounter our heavy weapons teams, you will encounter multiple magnetometer screening and wanding. We also would ask you, when you enter these locations, to please make sure you discard all of those prohibited items, such as large bags, umbrellas, chairs, as those will not be allowed inside of our access points. Once again, our message to our public is, please, if you see something, say something. Flag down a cop, call 1-888-NYC-SAFE. Together we can keep New York City the safest big city. Thank you.
Thanks, Martine. Thanks, Terry. So as I'm listening to this, what I take away is we need the public's cooperation. I think the weather is going to be good. It can't be much worse than last year, but as you hear the multi-layers of protection that's in place, we ask everyone, again, as Terry said, mass transit is critical. You're not going to be able to drive a car around anyway. Be patient as we're doing these screenings, and above all else, know what you can and can't bring to the the area in general and leave that stuff home. It'll just speed up the entire process. So we'll take questions on topic.
Commissioner, this is your first year in charge of Times Square New Year's Eve. What worries you about this?
Yeah, first year in charge, certainly not my first year. I mean, there's a core team here that's been through this a number of times throughout the city, and the focus clearly is Times Square, but we're protecting many events through the city. I just want everyone to have a happy, safe ring into the new year, and I think that's exactly what we're going to have.
You mentioned some adjustments that are made based on what you see going on around the world. Can you point to a couple of incidents globally that you guys have looked at and the preparations were?
John, you want to jump?
Obviously, we look at the threat condition around the world. We look at the threat condition in New York. As Martine said, we have no specific credible threat against New Year's Eve. There have been other years where we've dealt with either credible threats or specific threats. This year, the chatter is down a little bit. That is after a spate of ISIS posters targeting New York that started at the beginning of the summer and reached just under 50, which is something that catches our attention. But look, we understand New Year's Eve is a target in Times Square. It's a big event. It's Times Square, which is a symbolic target. It's televised and watched by millions, if not billions, of people. But that is the very reason why, as Chief Matarazzo described, we have a layered effect where you're passing through layers of protection before you get to the first checkpoint. Then you're getting checked once by a number of different measures, including wanding, but also vapor wake detection dogs that can sense explosives moving through a crowd. When you get to the pens, you're checked again. And that's why there's not a single point of contact there. It's a layered system so that we have multiple chances to catch something coming through. It's why we have thousands of cops. It's why we devote all of these resources and money. So I think, as has been stated by a couple of people here, Times Square is probably going to be the safest place on the planet Earth on New Year's Eve, because nobody else puts that kind of effort into an event like this.
Any other questions on this topic? Is there anything new that's completely new, or the drones new, or you sort of?
Last year, we tried to put the drones up. With the weather, we couldn't get it up to watch it. The drone mitigation is something that we've been working hand in hand with our counterterrorism unit and with the FBI. And this year, we'll be utilizing it during Times Square.
What's the value? Just explain to me in terms of value of that.
Prevent the drone, unauthorized drone from coming into the area. It's, well, I'm not going to go into the details of how we're utilizing, but we've utilized it on 3 or 4 different occasions here in New York City on major events, and we're working hand in hand to perfect this with our federal partners.
Also, there have been several anti-Semitic attacks in the past. Well,
Let's stay on
topic.
top.
Any other questions on this topic?
Almost.
The mayor this morning said, he doesn't understand why so many people go down to Times Square. If you were not required to go to Times Square on New Year's Eve, perhaps you're not, would you choose to spend your New Year's Eve there?
I see it from both sides. I've been there, as we all have, so many times. I've gone there and felt the cold in my bones 3 days later. But there's nothing like being out there when that ball comes down and it's everything New York right in that moment. So for anyone that hasn't been there, as crazy as it is to have to get there so early and freeze or be like a wet duck like last year, like we all were, it's something that you have to experience, and you see the best in people.
Great, we'll take
You're
Representative.
saying it's 4 a.m. Tuesday in that major zone? Like, that's insanely early, but.
Up to some blockers, pens and cross traffic and all that may start as early as 4 a.m.